Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Robert Adams, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Flight Sergeant Michael Hoogland. This evening, we warmly welcome Colonel Haji Mohammed Al-Badi, Chief of Staff of the Royal Brunei Air Force, accompanied by Group Captain Kenneth Bowes, Director of Air Force International Engagement. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of Toorak College visiting from Mount Eliza in Victoria. If you are able, I now invite you to please stand and join in singing the national anthem. Students and visitors who are able to be seated, you may now do so. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us during war and on operations over more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Frederick Leslie Jeffrey. Frederick Jeffrey was born on the 25th of June 1890 in Nevertire, New South Wales, to Robert and Alice Jeffrey. Little is known of Frederick's childhood. His father, Robert, died in 1901, leaving Alice to care for her family alone. Before the outbreak of the First World War, Fred was employed as a stockman and living in regional New South Wales. Fred enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 21st of August 1915 in Sydney. He was assigned to the 1st Australian Light Horse Regiment as a private and began initial training at Liverpool Barracks. Frederick left Australia on the 9th of November 1915 in HMAT Beltana, bound for Egypt. Fred arrived in Egypt on the 11th of December 1915. He joined the Western Frontier Force in January 1916 and was deployed to the Western Desert of Egypt to assist in fighting against the nomadic Senussi in the region. Senussi in the region. After 10 months, Fred was transferred to the 1st Light Horse Details, joining the regiment at Moscow. He was absent from squadron lines without leave on the 13th of November and absent from morning roll call the next day and was fined 1 day's pay. Frederick was transferred from the 1st Light Horse to the No. 2 Company of the Imperial Camel Corps on the 21st of November. The next day, they left Alexandria for Sollum, near the border of modern-day Egypt and Libya. Around Sollum, the Imperial Camel Corps continued to fight against the Senussi with long patrols and brief skirmishes. In late 1916, the Imperial Camel Corps was transferred to the Sinai Desert to take part in operations against the Ottoman army. During a reorganisation, Fred joined the 1st Australian Camel Battalion within the Camel Corps. From December to April, the Corps fought as a part of the British push across the desert towards Gaza. Fred's battalion was involved in the first attack on Gaza on the 26th of March, which ultimately ended in the withdrawal of the British forces. Just 3 weeks later, a second attack similarly failed, with the British units sustaining heavy casualties. During the second attack on Gaza, Fred was captured by the Ottomans and taken prisoner of war. Although initially reported as missing, his record was later amended. Fred was captured with 11 other cameleers and transported to the Yabashi in Turkey and then to Nij. Over 6 months of captivity, Fred's health worsened. Although he had been unwounded when he was captured, by early November he was suffering from dysentery and rheumatism and was admitted to the hospital in Nij. Private Frederick Leslie Jeffrey died of dysentery on the 23rd of November 1917. He was 27 years old. Fred's body was initially buried alongside 3 other Australians who died in hospital. None of his fellow prisoners were permitted to attend his burial. After the war, the Imperial War Graves Commission began the work of identifying and consolidating the graves of British soldiers across the Ottoman Empire. The graves were finally located in 1927, and Fred's remains were exhumed and reinterred at the Baghdad Northgate Cemetery, almost 10 years after his death. There was no identification on the graves at Nij, so Fred's remains could not be identified, and he was buried in the same plot as 3 other prisoners of war. His mother selected the personal inscription on his headstone: "Love's greatest gift of remembrance." His name is also listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is one but many of the stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Frederick Leslie Jeffrey, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.